is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And with us, there's Kenny Low. He's a photographer, as well as Azrul Muhammad Khalib. He's a social activist and a convener for Malaysians for Malaysia. How are you guys doing?
Very good. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having us on the show.
So, Kenny Low, you are a photographer and you've done something that is interesting, which is in conjunction with the Merdeka Day and Malaysia Day. What is it?
Actually, it's a book called Born in Malaysia, but it was released last year in time for our 50th anniversary. It's just that over the past 1 year, I thought I'll publish a book and then that's it. I'll leave it at that. But some friends, especially Malaysians from Malaysia, Azrul, they saw the book and they decided to take it up, trying to create some awareness of unity around it.
Mm. And because of that, you actually have a few exhibitions, and one of it will be in Publica.
Yeah, it's running now till September 2nd at the concourse area, so everyone's invited.
Mm-hmm. Which is in line with our theme today, which is called Born in Malaysia, a photo essay of multiculturalism. So the title of your book, which is called Born in Malaysia,
yes.
Why you put it that way? What's the significance with that title?
As with any titles, these are the hardest things in the world to do, more so than the photography. So I think I just look at the subjects and it seemed like something that was simple and to the point.
So you said you were focusing on Malaysia in transition. So what kind of a transition were you looking at when you were photographing?
Well, actually I've lived abroad for a number of years. So when I came home to Malaysia, I was wondering if things were still the same or had they changed so much that I wouldn't recognize it. So just went around and photographed people and interviewed, and I think one of the realizations is that although things supposed to have changed a lot, but actually it's still the same.
Mm-hmm.
People are still the same. They still have the same values.
Just the politicians change.
Yes. I was going to think, do I have to be politically correct?
So Azrul, you've been to the exhibition for Born in Malaysia. What is your opinion about it?
Well, one of the reasons why we wanted to collaborate with Kenny on this exhibition is to basically remind ourselves and to the Malaysians at large that, we talk about this lost period, this lost era where, Malaysians are together, and we keep thinking that today Malaysian society is polarized and politically sensitive. I mean, it's too divisive, But the reality is that Kenny's photos show that Malaysia, as we understand it, we understood it in the past, still exists today. So basically, what his photos are demonstrating very clearly in very beautiful images that you really need to see in Publica if you haven't seen yet, is that Malaysians are living the life that we very often talk about in the campaigns and talking about unity and harmony, and that the ones who are actually dividing us and making us all worked up about petty issues and many of the divisive issues that we hear about today are really the politicians. So ordinary Malaysians are living their life in harmony, in coexistence and acceptance of each other. And most importantly, they're celebrating the diversity and plurality of this country.
Mm-hmm. You traveled, Kenny, all over Peninsula Malaysia
and East Malaysia
to capture all the different faces and the livings, the lives of these different people. What was the experience, and how long it took you to capture all these photos?
Well, when I tell people it took me 3 years, people think either he's a very slow worker or he's just lazy.
What do you think, Azrul?
It wasn't any of those. Some of the places I went to, for example, East Malaysia, I spent about, in all, maybe 2 months there. But going back 3 times, places like Melaka, Penang, even Alustar, each place I went there 2-3 times. So, and I didn't want to set myself any target like, today I have to shoot 3 people, 3 portraits and all. So it's just one of those things that you travel and you just sort of allow the road to lead you to where you're supposed to go. So that's why it took a while to do. But seeing that it's done now, as I said earlier, I thought that the book would just go in the bookstores and then that's it. But I'm glad that other people have taken up the cause, the Unity cause.
Were you looking for anything specific when you were photographing these people, or
just
was it
stumbled
just
on it?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me if how did I choose the subject, but actually I was just led to different places. You know, when you sit in a warung in Kota Baru, speaking to people, and then if you spend enough time there, you know, things will start to evolve, and you start seeing interesting things, and you see a fisherman come in and say his catch has just come in. Would you like to follow them? You know, so the thing is, but what I took away from this, what I realized is that, as Azrul said, you know, unity is there. It's not something that we have to work at. So, you know, all these things about we have to unity is something that we have to focus on. You know, it's always been there. It's just that politicians tell you otherwise. But never have I been asked, felt uninvited in any homes, whether it's Malay, Chinese, Indian, or Portuguese. You know.
They never question you.
No, because Malaysians are hospitable people. We don't have any airs or anything like that. Well, maybe in the cities in Kuala Lumpur, people's homes are less accessible. But when you're in a small town or a small village, people just are trusting, and they recognize you as a fellow Malaysian. So why should they be unkind?
One interesting, I guess, aspect after looking through the photo essay, Born in Malaysia, is the contrast of socio-economic background between the people that you photograph and the people around the people in Kuala Lumpur or in Petaling Jaya that we live amongst with. It seems like people outside the urban area that you photograph seems to be struggling or having a day-to-day life that is all about struggle.
I don't think they're struggling, so to speak, because if we let our own lives here in Kuala Lumpur color our judgment of others, then it means that we think, okay, this guy doesn't have a iPhone or iPad, doesn't have a big car, but that's not the case, because these people are very happy. You know, I've met a lot of people who just have to work very hard, sweat all day, but at the end of the day, they have their families to go home to. They're just as happy as we are. In fact, I think if you live in the city, you try too hard to buy the next thing, you know. Actually, I think we're just too stressed in KL. I am.
What is your opinion, Azrul, on this?
No,
in terms
you
of
know,
the socio-economic background of the people being photographed and the reality of life in the urban area we have here?
Well, the thing is, you know, Kenny went on this 4-year, track, wanderlust towards all around Malaysia, and for no other reason as to, you know, sort of discover what is it about Malaysia that makes us tick, and what is it that Malaysians really care about, and what their everyday lives are like. And the amazing thing that I can say with regards to what you see in these photos is that it's not contrived, you know. They capture people in their everyday work and what they're doing. They're not posing. They're not like something coming out from a tourism campaign poster. And what is very clear is that when you talk about socio-economic conditions in this country, is that honestly, perhaps those who are living in the rural areas are better off than those living in the urban settings, you know. And it looks like that in terms of, I think Kenny said it very nice, you know, that the needs and wants are different. And when you consider the problems that we face in cities where there's urban poor, hardcore poverty in cities like Kuala Lumpur, Penang, Johor Bahru, and you consider that there is a very, very strong concern about the widening gap between the haves and have-nots in this country. And if anything, what Kenny's photos have been able to sort of illustrate is that we need to go back to the basics, meaning we need to focus back instead of building skyscrapers, instead of focusing on monuments to ourselves and the leadership of this country, that we need to focus on creating jobs, opportunities for Malaysians, whether they're in rural areas or urban areas, to be able to expand, to learn, to grow, and to be successful. And I don't think there are enough opportunities out there, and Kenny's photos have captured this story about Orang Asal people, for example, kids who are coming out from kampungs in jungles, and they're coming out to learn. And I was talking to a girl the other day. You know what she said her ambition was going to be? These two Orang Asal girls, okay? One said she wants to be a doctor. Okay, that one I hear quite often. The other one wants to be a scientist. So, and it's amazing what opportunities for education can provide to young girls who come from Orang Asal settlements. And we need to be able to do that, to provide more opportunities so that we can address socio-economic concerns.
So, Kenny, like what he said about Orang Asal, one of the tribes that you went is the Tumuan people.
Yes.
How was it photographing them and staying with them for a couple of days?
Yeah, actually it's a long-term project for me because the NGO, they're called Samoa, SEMOA. What I do for them is actually try and create awareness for their plight. I also am involved in the funding for them, trying to get people to build, maybe we're trying to work on get a dormitory built now for them. We only have 50 over kids, but we hope to bring in 200 kids. So that's a long-term project for me. So that arose out of this shooting this book, because I felt that as a photographer, if I just photograph them and then I just left them as they are, what has happened to them? So I'm in a good position to assist. I do what I can. But one of the things that kind of touched me the other day was when Azrul asked those two, Cecilia and actually Justina, whether what they wanted the public to know, and they both said the same thing. It's like, jangan lupa kita, don't forget us. So that was, I think, quite telling in how even the little kids, they sense the current situation.
How about in terms of labeling? Because when we talk about Malaysia, it's always Indian, Malay, Chinese, dan lain-lain. So how do you think that we can include these people without just calling them the others because they belong in Malaysia?
Yeah, probably rethink the mainstream label of what race and religion is all about.
Azrul did, I saw a posting that Azrul did recently. He was like Malay, Chinese, Indian, and then the other one, down there he put Malaysians. And that's all there is. It's as simple as that. Thank you, Azrul.
No, actually, one of the things that is a problem for us in this country is the need to put ourselves into boxes, into labels, into categories where, for no other reason than to put us into these categories. I mean, you've got to wonder some of these forms that we fill in. These nonsensical forms for, like gym membership lah, you go and do hair product lah, and then you got to fill in agama, you got to fill in race. And really, the reality is that we don't need to do this, because it creates this mindset that we need to be in these categories of people. And what's worse is, because kita malas, right?
We're lazy.
We put there Malay, Chinese, Indian, and then we put there dan lain-lain, isi sendiri, and it's insulting, I think, for us Malaysians to think that we are only these three ethnicities, and everybody else is classified as etc. So exactly. So you know what? What we should all be starting to do is that on non-essential forms, things that it's not like government forms and so on, maybe to start with, we should fill in these forms by putting there in the lain category Malaysians. We should all start doing that.
By the way, do you know that in Sweden, they already scrapped the word race or the category race in their legislation.
Yeah, I read that. Very
So do you think we
interesting.
should do away altogether?
Well, these things are gradual. It takes time to get to where we want to be. And to start off with, we should start with the non-essential forms first, And unfortunately, we're very much a technocratic society, very bureaucratic. We need things to be a certain way. So to start off, we ordinary citizens should start by filling in these forms by putting there Malaysians, to start off with. And then we should start lobbying for the need to do away with race altogether. But I think it will take time. It's not going to be something that can happen overnight. But most importantly, our own mindsets have to be that when we look at Kenny's photos at the exhibition in Publica, we're not looking at Malay, Chinese, Indian, and putting people in boxes, but we're looking at and celebrating Malaysians. And we need to start ourselves thinking that way.
Kenny, I remember you mentioned earlier about the Malaysian hospitality that you received throughout your journey in Peninsula and East Malaysia. Why it is lost now when it comes to us, especially in the middle class in the urban area?
I think I don't know whether I should even say this. Maybe this thing about divide and rule, something along those lines. It's probably easier for people to be categorized and then, but I think people are just, some people are just afraid of people being together. If there's a oneness, if everyone feels unified and all that, how would the politicians protect their interests? So I think that this race card is just being played for political reasons, and then for this same reason, when it comes to talks about discussions about unity, and then someone will come out, oh, we need to do this or that, but we are unified already. Why keep on harping on this? Because the more we talk about it, then the more it becomes polarized. It's different races.
Can I just add on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to add on to what Kenny says, though, the thing is, the reality that we exist in Malaysia today is that, unfortunately, is that there is a divide. There are divisions, and either they're created by politicians or by ourselves because we live in, our respective communities. There is a divide, and we need to talk about it, to recognize it for what it is, so that we can address the problem. We need to not pretend that these issues do not exist. And it's important for us to recognize that when you look at the Petronas ads, when you look at the feel-good stuff that comes out during Raya or Chinese New Year advertisements on TV, the crazy thing is that we look at Yasmin Ahmad's work, for example, and we say, oh my God, it's so good, we feel so Malaysian when we look at these commercials, yet in our everyday lives, we're not living that way, So it's like we're looking at ideals, but actually we don't see them in our everyday lives. And the reason why is because we ourselves enforce those stereotypes or those divisions that I mentioned. So, if we want to be talking about or thinking along the lines of Malay, Indian, Chinese, we need to start by treating it that way, that when we talk to other people, we don't think race, we think them as Malaysians. So we need to start.
Actually, just a little comment. Because I've spent so much time abroad, I find that let's say in London, when I meet another fellow Malaysian, whatever race he is, there's obviously we're so excited. We say, "Oh, you're from Malaysia," and we start talking and all that. But how come when we're back here, we're so different,
Yeah, gila kan? It's crazy. You boleh menjerit-jerit in Malay in Trafalgar Square, I say, hey, apa khabar, Malaysia,
True.
It can be anybody, but suddenly when we come back here, we put ourselves into our boxes again. It's weird.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. We will take a short break. When we return back, we will discuss more interesting stories from the experience of Kenny Low, documenting his photo essay Born in Malaysia.
Doors of sharing, durian ASEAN.
Hi, we are back. This is Arlene.
This is Gowri.
Together with us is Kenny Low and also Azrul Khalib, discussing about his photo essay book, Born in Malaysia. So, Kenny, you travel all over Peninsula and East Malaysia. You also have long discussion with different people, and a lot of them, from what I see in the book, are the older generations and kids. So what are the stories that they told you?
Well, one something that perhaps has more to do with maybe it's generalization, but most of them, when I talk to them, they just had pretty much wanted a good education for the kids. For the kids, they want to have a good future. I mean, these are common things that bond all of us together. So, but never did I hear anyone say that, oh, that thing is mine, that place is mine, you know. Everyone is just looking after themselves. They want a peaceful country to live in. So
there's no such thing as, oh, Bumiputera rights, or this is our right.
No one talks about that, because that is not something that Malaysians in general talk about. So, but then again, I've also met people who just given back selflessly. For instance, Noor Asmina, who's a hairstylist, by day, and at night she cuts the hair of the homeless. So
in KL?
Yes, like behind Kota Raya, you know, at middle of the night we're there, you know, it's dark and dingy, but she's there happily cutting the hair of those homeless people. And then she's got like another 4 or 5 hairstylists with her, and they have no qualms about cutting the hair of a Chinese person or Indian person. You know, there's no such thing as like, oh, this one haram, cannot touch, and all that. You know, this is the sort of thing that we should practice more. It's just that how do we want to live with others if we are so afraid of them, you know, this diversity. So to me, Noor Asmina is a pretty good example of a good Malaysian that has no qualms about helping others.
And another one I want to ask Azrul is about the meaning of unity. I think, as you may know, the government has always been promoting the idea of one Malaysia and national unity, but at the same time, you know, a lot of fringe groups or right-wing groups that are spewing, you know, messages of hatred towards each other. But what is actually unity is all about, if you want to talk about the Malaysian context?
You know, word unity, unfortunately, has become an overused, overblown, and I dare say abused word. Because, you know, for purposes when it's convenient, then certain people talk about unity, and then you find out that the unity that they talk about is a different version than what you and I would think about. You know, it's like we have to unite behind one particular group or individual or community. So what we should be talking about instead really is a shared future and a shared destiny together. You know, and that is what we should be talking about, sharing this country together. Because, you know, it's easy for us to say that, oh, we should be, you know, we should have national unity in the country, but when we don't share, you know, the resources, we don't share opportunities, we don't work on the principles of meritocracy, then it's very hard to talk about being united, you know. So, you know, we have a situation, for example, you know, when we think about Sabah Sarawak, right, East Malaysia, I swear to God, so many people sometimes forget that Sabah Sarawak are part of Malaysia. You know, that it's like visiting another country, that the only thing when we talk about Malaysia is Peninsular Malaysia. And the reason why that happens so much is because we don't share enough our experiences. We don't, how should we say, intertwine ourselves with what happens in East Malaysia. Because in East Malaysia, the the state of the country there is a lot better than what we see in Peninsula. You know, they live much more in coexistence, acceptance of each other. There's less sectarian problems or religious tensions and so forth. So we need to learn from them as to how we here in Peninsula can do a better job. Because if we talk about living together, sharing a future together, and believing in a shared destiny, I think Sabah and Sarawak have a lot to teach us, because they seem to believe in it more than we do in Peninsula. We seem to be fighting over so many issues in this part of the country that it dominates our politics. You know, I think you mentioned just now about people talking, using words of hate and bigotry, racism. You know, we need to recognize that these things are wrong. And I think we have not yet recognized that racism is not acceptable. Encouraging hate towards other people is also not acceptable. To be bigots is also not acceptable. You know, yet we tolerate politicians who espouse all these values, all these words. They use language to create fear and tension. Why do we tolerate that? We should be asking for their resignation. We should have zero tolerance for this kind of behavior. But so what I'm saying is, it's partly our fault. Just as much as we blame politicians and other people as to all these problems that we've been having in the country, we have to remember that 57 years of this country is being built by 57 years of Malaysians putting their sweat, blood, and tears in making it what it is today. So if we want a better future, then we've got to also stand up and speak out and say, we want better politicians, we want better politics.
So we have to stand up in a way.
Yeah, we have to stand up and speak out.
And Kenny Low, your visit to East Malaysia is I bet it's an eye-opener for you. As far as I know, I remember yesterday watching the new Petronas advertisement on Merdeka and also Malaysia Day, and I was glad that one of the clip was about the formation of Federation of Malaysia, which includes Sabah and Sarawak. How was it being there?
Well, Azrul is right. If I may use this word unity again, always using it. But over there, it is true that people are closer. I find more people eating together, especially at coffee shops, all races. Whereas here in the city, in Peninsula, it tends to be segmented more. They certainly know more about living together than we do. And I mean, it pans out, because over the couple of months that I spent there, you could see that it is true. You know, this sense of belonging to one country.
And your book, you will be translating it into Malay and Chinese.
Yes, I think that was critical. That's something that we felt that if it's just in English, it's too exclusive. And also the other thing is, we're actually hoping to give the books away.
For free.
Yes, because when you look at the price of the book, is 65 ringgit. Some of us can afford it, but if your salary is 900 or 800, you can't. So what do we do? So right now we're actually trying to work it out so that we can give it away to perhaps to libraries or community centers and things like that.
Actually, if I may just add very, very, very quickly, Kenny, is that Kenny's book, Born in Malaysia, needs to be seen and read by every member of the Malaysian cabinet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you have to bring this to the cabinet.
We are going to give them a copy.
I think they should pay for a copy, but maybe we should give it to them for free, but I can tell you this, is that I think our leadership has forgotten what the Malaysian people are like, living so far removed from the everyday lives of people. So I think giving them this book allows them to understand and relate better to what on earth is going on the ground. And I think they should read and see this exhibition in Publica.
We certainly hope so.
Promo skip.
And the exhibition in Publica will be on until?
September 2nd.
September 2nd.
And one more thing, we're actually trying to, we're working on the second book. We're going to crowdsource the photo essay. So we're going, at some point, we're going to run a contest, have people write in with photos and essays about other Malaysians' idea of what it means to be Malaysian. So that's something that we're going to start, and at least this second book, it will be from the viewpoint of our fellow citizens.
When you traveled all over, Malaysia, what are the myths that we always keep in mind, but actually it's not true?
Well, a big myth is that there's no unity. Again, I have to use this word.
No, it's okay.
Sorry, Azrul.
As I said, we are living and breathing this sort of shared country, shared life, shared future. But so is the myth that for example, the Malays and the Indians don't get along well, or any of the races don't get along, or this race is trying to take what belongs to you. It's not true, because when I travel, I find that people are just friendly. No one is like, oh.
What are the interesting people that you met? Because I saw that you documented a lot of people with really interesting profession.
Actually, most of us have something interesting that we have done. If you're not a vegetable or something. But the people I've met, one of the realizations that I had about this from doing this book is that even for myself, my own family, my own parents, I never realized that my dad was contributed so much to the country. And after a while of talking to a lot of people, I realized that everyone has their vocation in life. It doesn't matter what it is, whether you're a barber or a scientist or whatever, but we are all contributing to the country. So I don't see how anyone is not interesting. Everyone has an interesting story to tell, but maybe some are just more colorful. That's all.
More colorful.
Yeah.
And one of it I saw was a Chinese opera.
Yeah.
It's a community Chinese opera, right?
That one usually happens during festivals, or during the Ghost Month festival and all. But again, those things are also in decline. I think we will lose that over the next couple of years. And yesterday, someone came over and bought 2 books for her children. She said she wanted to keep the books for her children when they're older. They realize how Malaysia was like then. So that was I really appreciated that comment.
And some of them that you photographed were kids.
Yes.
Besides the 2 kids that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
What were the other kids that when you photographed? Did you talk to them, and did they say anything interesting?
Yeah, of course I talked to them. They kids being kids, they see a photographer coming in, they will just want to follow you around and tease you and do all sorts of things. But I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the rapport with them. Even for the book cover, the 3 kids were following me all around the fishing village, and I really wanted to photograph fishermen. And they said, abang ambil gambar, After a while, I said, you guys,
I'm going to put you as a cover photo.
So I said to them in Malay, I said, I'm going to turn around in 5 seconds. You guys better be ready. When I turned around, there they were. And sometimes photography is easy. Lucky.
You have already a willing models there. A bunch of willing models. You've been abroad for so long, and you came back to Malaysia feeling like a foreigner. Then you started to get to know Malaysia deeply, especially during your travels throughout the country. If you were to make comparison between Malaysia and the countries that you live with for a long time. What did you see Malaysia? Do you think we are getting better, or do you think Malaysia is the most unique country ever?
I don't think I'm like a foreigner when I come back, because when you live abroad, you still come back a couple of times a year. But then again, if you're not working in Malaysia, you don't know what you have to deal with, whether it's like applying for your passport or just things like that. But I think when the reason why I wanted to come back, maybe to put it simply, is just that it's home. Whatever you do when you're abroad, at some point in your life, you will think that you've done what you can abroad and you want to come home. But when you come home, and I'm certainly optimistic, because when I traveled, I never, as I said, I didn't meet anyone who was bigot or racist, So maybe they're all congregated in one area, which I didn't come across. But Malaysians, it's just such fun, and so I encourage people to just travel around the country and meet people, But when you see people traveling in Peninsula, it's like one Chinese group, one whatever race that there is. But even in the rest area and the highway, you can see like the group, they are all grouped according to race. Just sit together. Just sit together. There's So one of the things I always stress is that celebrate the diversity rather than being afraid of it.
Celebrate diversity. So with you, Azrul, you're also a convener for Malaysians for Malaysia. Through this project, Born in Malaysia, what are your thoughts, in terms of Malaysians in general?
Well, for us, one of the things that we are trying to do is to support initiatives like these, to encourage Malaysians to look beyond themselves. Very often, all we think about is our life, our cari makan, our 9-to-5 jobs, our families, and what we need to start thinking about and continue to do is to think about our neighbors, our communities, and our country, to give back, because we can't be selfish. A lot of us don't have the resources, opportunity, or even want to leave this country, to migrate to Australia or Singapore. No, you don't want to migrate to Singapore, you want to migrate somewhere else. Hong Kong or Canada or the UK. Most of us don't want to do that, So, but if we have a problem with what's happening in today's, environment, the politics, the social tensions, and how we interact between other communities, other ethnicities, we have to decide to participate, to try to make that change, to say something, to speak out against it, because things won't change if we remain quiet, And what we want to do through Malaysians for Malaysia is to encourage Malaysians to participate in civil society events, activities. And I believe that Malaysians will believe if they see other Malaysians stand up for each other. And right now, when things happen, we sometimes hunker down and say, "Oh, itu bukan hal aku, that's not my business, that's your business, I don't want to have anything to do with it." And I think, no, we can't. But we can't afford to adopt this kind of behavior, because it's our country. We share this country, we share, how it is, and for better or worse, this is us, So what we try to do in Malaysians for Malaysia is to ensure that, people like Kenny here are able to have opportunities where they can show their work, show how well Malaysians are in terms of the portrayal of everyday Malaysians, but also to tell the politicians and to tell people who are up there, screaming and shouting, to say that you're wrong. Malaysians are not like this. Malaysians are not the way that you portray them to be. We are much better.
Mhm.
We are better, and this point needs to be made.
Yeah. And for you, Kenny, do you have any messages when it comes to Malaysians, especially in conjunction with Malaysia Day and Merdeka Day?
It's simply just celebrate the diversity. We're really, really blessed and fortunate that, the tourists always say, Malaysia, you're so lucky, you have all these people here, all these cultures and all that. But we ourselves should realize it and live it.
Mm-hmm. With that, any last message, Azrul?
Well, from my side, from Malaysians from Malaysia, I would like to make out a call for Malaysians to support and celebrate Merdeka and Malaysia Day in the best way possible by, talking to neighbors, doing community events, and we need to tell ourselves and others that Malaysia is a home for all, not just for some people, and we need to be.
Yeah, and don't forget to go to the Born in Malaysia exhibition, which is happening now at Publica. And you'll be there as well, right?
Yeah, I'll be there. Guarding.
Thank you, Kenny, and thank you, Azrul, for speaking with us.
Thank you, Gowri and Arlene, for having us on the show.
Thank you.